what is leased land? If you're new to the real estate market in Palm Springs, you probably noticed that a lot of our listings say they're on leased land. So what is that? Well, in brief, what it is, at some point back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, the government divided up the land in Palm Springs, and about every other mile square foot was given to the Native American Indians. So if you basically look at a map, it almost looks like a checkerboard pattern. Some of that land ownership has changed over the years, but more or less every other mile square foot is leased land. So you can buy property that is on leased land. The main difference with that is you're gonna pay rent to have that property. So you don't own the actual land. You would own the house, but not the land, and you would pay either a monthly or a yearly rent fee to the landlord that owns the actual land that the house sits on, okay? There's pros and cons to leased land. In general, the major pro is some of the best neighborhoods in Palm Springs are gonna be on leased land. And number two, in general, you pay less for property that's on leased land because you don't own the property than you would if it was on what's called fee simple land. So fee simple land is basically the terminology for land that you actually own. That's not leased land. So there's no general rule as to how much less you'll pay for leased land than fee land, but in general, they've said it's about 25% less. I don't know if that holds true in every neighborhood. So that's just kind of really a general guideline. Things to note about leased land. There's only certain lenders that will loan on leased land. I mean, you can still get a loan, but we'd highly encourage you to go with a local lender that is familiar with loaning on leased land. Otherwise, you might get into trouble with an out-of-area lender that may not be familiar with all the paperwork that's required and everything that's involved with that. One of the other things you want to consider is the length of the lease. Most lenders will only loan on leased land if there's at least 5 years longer than the term of the lease. So in other words, if you're wanting to get a 35-year loan or a 30-year loan, you want to make sure there's 35 years left on the lease. The other thing you want to look at is how much is the lease and how much can it go up each year. A lot of times they're tied in with the consumer price index, which went up quite a bit this past year. Typically it doesn't go up that much. And sometimes there'll be a cap on the most that it can go up on each year. So you want to check that out when you go into escrow on a property on leased land. You'll get a chance to review the actual lease documents. So we strongly encourage you to look at all those details to see if there's any restrictions and just to see how long the lease is and how much it can go up each year to make sure you're comfortable with that. There's a couple other things you want to be concerned about. There may often be a transfer fee. I've seen some leases where when you go to sell the property, you have to pay a certain percentage of what you sell the property for back to the leaseholder. So that's another thing you're going to look at when you're looking at a property in leased land. So keep in mind, again, I'll repeat, some of the best properties in Palm Springs and the best neighborhoods are going to be on leased land. So if you want to live in those neighborhoods, you're going to have to just, accept the fact that it's on leased land. So, but they're not, I wouldn't necessarily shy away from it. There's ways to work around leased land. You just need to know the ins and outs of it, and your realtor should be able to help you with that. If you want to read more about it, click on the link below, and you can read more details about the history of leased land as well as some of the details involved when you're buying on that type of property.